Good morning, everybody. It's Chris here at Blue Rhino Safaris. Yes, it is day 4 of the South African lockdown, and there's 3 things that I quickly want to share with you. The third thing being something on my migrations. How do they work? Where you find them? The reasons for them, and which tours that we would do that would visit those migrations. So stick around for a chat about migrations. But firstly, I asked you the other day the birds, if you could identify those 2 birds. And the first bird, of course, is a spotted eagle owl. We have a pair in our neighborhood, and I've had him in my tree right here by the house. I've had him at the water fountain. So yes, the spotted eagle owl is number 1. Number 2 is something that you might not have seen a lot of. And if you hear him chirp, you might not know his whistle. But it is the greater honey guide, indicator. With the bees around, suddenly this little guy appeared on my doorstep, and he was here doing his thing with the bees. So while the bees are here, the honey guide is here. So those are the 2 birds. The second thing I wanted to quickly chat about is just the on the coronavirus. Just 30 seconds. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Be careful of misinformation out in the media. I heard this morning the Western Cape said that wearing face masks is wrong and that you can get infected by it. Please be careful with who you listen to, and listen to the context of what people are saying. There's a saying that I always refer to, and that is the man with argument, the man with experience is never at the mercy of a man with argument, which means the one that has done it doesn't have to listen to the arguments of the one that has never done it before. So listen to people that have the experience. And in this regard, I refer to countries like South Korea and China and places that has dealt with it. If you look at the South Korean curve, you'll see that they have done really well with it. They admit the mistakes they've made, which we can learn from, but look at their behavior and look at how they operate. There's a very good video on the chief epidemiologist at one of the universities in South Korea, and he goes through the whole thing to tell you what works and what doesn't work. So be careful of grabbing bits of information from anybody that comes around. Listen to the ones that have beaten this thing and take your cues from them. Also, consider your fellow South Africans. It's payday. It's the 30th of March today, so most people are only getting money now, and they need to get out to buy some food. So don't send videos around with people in long queues at shops and saying they're disregarding government. They're not. Most of these guys are seriously in need of food. So just give them a little bit of space. But in any case, let's chat about migrations. Around the world, there's several migrations happening constantly, and I said in the previous video that it happens for different reasons. It's not really that true that it happens for different reasons. It happens predominantly for one reason, and that one reason is food. Now, when I was at school, they said the birds migrate back to the northern area where it's warm, and it's because it's cold here that they go there because it's warm. And it's an understanding that we have of migration, that the birds would migrate because it's cold and they want to go where it's warm. Now, you have to think a bird doesn't really struggle that much with cold, so why would he move for cold? And it has to do with food chains. Now, if you have a general temperature underneath 21 degrees Celsius, then all your exothermic animals like insects are reliant on the heat of the sun to get them active. The moment your temperature starts dropping, these insects become less operational. So they slow down in their process. They go into like a slow motion system. For example, the bees will go from an 80,000 bee hive, they will drop down to 20,000. Because it's winter, there's less food around, it's cold, they're struggling, so they will get together, reduce their numbers, and wait for summer to come. You all know flies in summer is everywhere, and in winter there's no flies. Mosquitoes in summer they are everywhere, in winter they are nowhere. So all the little birds that eat mosquitoes and flies and bees are suddenly out of food when winter comes. So they have to go for food. Where do they go? Where the insects are active. That could be just across the border in northern Botswana. It could be further on in Zambia. It could be in Egypt. Wherever they move to find food is where they will be. The birds that have them as a prey will follow them. Now these little birds have their own predators, which is a raptor of some sort. These raptors, their prey is now all going north, so the raptors need to start going north because that's where the food is going. And so the cycle repeats itself. The birds that hang around are the birds that are comfortable with the food that's available. The little bee eater is the only one that stays behind. Little bee eater, he's small, doesn't eat a lot of bees, and all the other bee eaters are gone. So the little bee eater is the one that can hang around and say, no, I can survive winter, so I'm all right. So if you drive through the bush now, you'll see them. Little bee eaters are there. But the big ones, they are all gone. Flycatchers, there's no flies in winter. Flycatchers go because there's no food for them. And then the predators of these birds go with them. So the food of the birds move. And it's not northern hemisphere. It is wherever that food is available. It could be Angola, it could be Zambia, it could be Tanzania, it could be anywhere where the food that they want is available. And that's why birds will. So what about the Serengeti? How does that work? Now, if you go into Google Earth, you will see Lake Victoria up here in the northern part of Tanzania. Right here, you have the Serengeti. If you look at the Serengeti itself, then the animals, this green patch in the center, this is the Serengeti. So down in the south, where the Ngorongoro crater is, and this low area, the wildebeest will move down there for February. The food is in abundance, the rains are pretty predictable and constant. They know they will be alright, so that's where they go to calve. So if you're looking for the migration, then you'll go into the southern area around about February of the year. And then once they are finished with their calving, they will move. But why do they move? People always say to me when they come to my stall, they will say, we want to see the migration. And will we see the migration? And most people think that the wildebeest migration is like a railway line with animals going from A to B, and it's running and crossing rivers and things like that. The wildebeest are not crossing from the bottom to the top once a year. It's in their cycle, but it's not a deliberate move. Rather, what's happening is the wildebeest will be down in here in February in the south, and in February there's a lot of thunderstorms in that area. So it's rainy season. So the grass are green. It's busy down there. But then as the rains move with the cycle of the Earth's climate, as it moves, the shift moves the rain further north. So now the rain starts moving up. Just as in South Africa, you have your Cape rains in the winter and the Gauteng rains in summer. So as this rain starts moving, it means the grass in the center of Serengeti now is green. And in the south, it's getting less rain. The wildebeest knows this. So what they do is they see on the horizon there's a big thunderstorm. And they know if they start walking here today, they'll get there in a week. So they will graze, and slowly make their way in that direction where they saw the big rains. And when they get there in 7 days or whatever time, then that grass is the ideal length for them to feed on. Now let's say they moved in March from the south and they went over to the western side. Then suddenly it starts raining in the east. Those wildebeest will move east. They don't carry on north because it's not raining in the north, it's raining in the east. And they crisscross the whole of Serengeti in that way. So there's no fixed pattern. There's a general pattern. And the general pattern is February they calve into the south. May, June you find them in the west. August, September you'll find them in the Kenya side. And then December or November they start moving down. And January, February they're back in the south again. So there's a general move in a circular direction. But this move is not fixed. They move from side to side, up and down as they want to. I can show you. I normally go mid-May to mid-June. I have found them in the complete east, in the complete west, in the complete south, and in the complete north in the same time of the year on different occasions. It all depends where it rains, where the wildebeest will be. So when you go into the Serengeti, you have no idea where they are. It's a question of driving in, having a plan to how you're going to tackle the Serengeti, because I know the roads in there, I know where to go, I know what roads to drive to find them. And that is key to doing the wildebeest migration. If you want to see them crossing a river, generally that happens on the Mara River, which is up at the top. And the Mara River crossings are a little bit gory because it's very steep crossings and you get a lot of wildebeest deaths. So most people don't want to see that. It's not why they want to go. So the best time to see the wildebeest, in my opinion, is to go when they are in the central Serengeti area. So you have to be careful. There are times that they can actually move slightly beyond the park boundaries and then you can't get to them. But otherwise you just have to be prepared to go and find them. So the time that we spend inside the Serengeti, normally if I don't find them on entry, maybe day 2 or day 3 we'll find them. Then we'll do the balloon ride, have an off day, going around looking at the lions and the leopards, and then we'll be off to the crater. So the migration in the Serengeti is not a solid circular route with the animals just keep running in a circle. That's not what they do. They slowly move at a rate of maybe 10 kilometers a week, 20 kilometers a week, something like that. And they'll slowly move this direction and then they slowly move that direction based on where the thunderstorms are. And that is why they do that. So that is the wildebeest migration. The other migration that we look at is the Kasanka migration. So it is close to Lake Benguelo. Lake Benguelo, of course, is where David Livingstone died. His heart was buried under a tree and his body was carried over to Zanzibar. But if you go up here, it's somewhere here, Benguelo, Lavushi, right around here is Kasanka National Park. Now, Kasanka National Park is known for the bat migration. Around about 8 million fruit bats every year that migrate there. But what's different from this migration versus the wildebeest is that this migration is a congregation rather than a migration. So what happens is all the bats from this diameter, all the fruit bats, southern DRC, western Zambia, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, all those fruit bats fly up to Kasanka National Park, because Kasanka National Park forms the epicenter of a small little fruit that is out October, November, December. So in that period, the trees there are making this small little fruit, and the fruit bats freak out over this. So they congregate there for 3 months, and then they disperse. In a night, they would fly up to 80 kilometers in the region to find their food, and then come back again at night, and they stay in that one forest in Kasanka, which we go to see every year in November. So the bat migration is not actually a migration. They don't all pick up and move somewhere else. They disperse again after the 3 months, and they all go in their own directions. But in that period, they all come there, and October, November, December, they are all congregated in Kasanka, 8 million bats, roughly speaking, going out at night to feed, coming back during the day. Now, just a point on the bat migration. Bats carry a lot of diseases, but these fruit bats are no threat to us. We're not in caves or walking amongst guano or sitting underneath them. We sit far away in the veld or in a tree hide, and we see the bats flying over us like a flock of birds, basically. So there's no issue about diseases or anything. So don't be worried about that. You won't pick up a disease going there. You don't actually get close to a bat at all. The closest you'll be to a bat is maybe 30 meters as it flies overhead. But it's a great thing to see. It's absolutely awesome. Then there's another migration in our region in western Zambia. Let me just orientate myself. There we go. So this is the Barotse Plain. This is the Zambezi River. And right here the river splits to the left. And in that corner you find Lua National Park. There you have it, Lua Plains National Park. And what happens over here is the second largest wildebeest migration. So this is the summer congregation area with the females calving around about October, November in here. So most of the tour operators will go November because that's when calving happens. Now the birds are not in because there's not enough rain yet, and the insects are not really out yet. The insects will arrive maybe in, or start getting very active with the rains that come at the end of November and the heat. So the birds arrive in Lua Plains National Park towards the end of November, beginning of December. Seasonal changes allowed, and the wildebeest who goes into the Angolan highlands will move down into this lowland area. They would have their calves and they would spend the summer there. And once the grazing is finished and the rain stops, they will move back into Angola again. And this is normal. So if you go to Lua Plains and there's no wildebeest and it's November, it only means that it might not have rained in Lua. It might have rained next to Lua and all the wildebeest are there. Now, this wildebeest migration is 50,000 compared to 2.4 million in Serengeti. It's two different wildebeest. This one is the blue-bearded gnu, or the not blue-bearded, the blue wildebeest. The other one is the white-bearded gnu. So the normal wildebeest, the blue wildebeest that we know, is the one in Zambia, and the white-bearded gnu is the one in Tanzania. Two different wildebeest. So their migration is very short, and it's more or less a up and down migration, moving up with the rain, coming back with the rain, moving up with the rain, coming back. Very similar to the Serengeti. Crisscross, crisscross up, crisscross, crisscross down. Cool. Another migration happens in the delta. Now, around the delta, it is dry. It's semi-desert conditions. There's just drought. The delta has the most water in the area and everything connected to the delta. So if you find your animals that needs water, elephant, buffalo, those large animals, they have to hang around the water. So they are here during the dry season. But as soon as it rains in Botswana, and it rains down, we found them all the way down at Kutsi, which is just north of Gaborone. If we find them there, it means it's rained in the area, and the elephants now, because the food needs to rest in the delta, they've now polished the food during the dry season. When it's the wet season, they are moving out into the Makgadikgadi National Park, down into Kutsi, all the way over to the Chobe Forest Reserve area. They are moving out of the delta to graze on the trees and grasses that haven't been utilized during the dry season. It is raining, so there's little ponds of water everywhere. The elephant can find water, so he doesn't have to stay in the delta. He can now move, and they will do that to preserve their food. So they move out of the delta, do their thing during the summer, and that's why if you go to Chobe National Park, right up here, if you go there in the first rains, the chances of seeing animals is almost zero. So if you book a trip to Chobe for November, it's great to go, it's lovely, but you might have first rains and the animals just disappear. Why? They went into the bush, there's water 10 kilometers away, and there's food, which hasn't been utilized for a few months now. And then when the winter starts coming back again and the pans dry up, then the elephants will move back into the delta. This is where the water is, there's food there, they haven't touched that food for 6 months, so the food condition is good, security is good, everything is lacquer. And that's their migration. Again, it's not a migration in any direction, it's in all directions. So it's a breathing out, coming back, breathing out, coming back. So when you see, if you want to see elephants in the delta, you go in the dry season. When in the dry season, preferably early, because then they are still on the outer periphery of the delta. The drier it becomes, the more they move inwards, where we can't drive with our vehicles. Cool. One more that I want to show you, which is one that is closer to home. And it's right up here at the Kruger National Park. Now, the Xingwetsi River has always been an artery of life for elephants of the Kruger. Unfortunately, Kruger National Park has fences, and those fences prohibits the elephants from moving. Now, before there was a war in Mozambique and there was a Kruger National Park, and this was just wildlife area, the elephants had a natural cycle of movement. And what they did was, from the Kruger area, where they would graze in summer, when the winter comes and it dries up, they would travel around the river section through a series of little pans that they have created over thousands of years by stomping in little pools of mud and opening them up, making little pans eventually. So the rain that was lying in those pans are there in the winter, and they follow the pans down towards the coast, and they would feed down at the coastal area for the winter period. There's more water, it's more green, the vegetation is available. And then as soon as the rain comes and the Xingweti River comes down, they would get back onto their horses, the elephants, and they would start following the river back up into the Kruger National Park area. And that was their natural migration. Also an annual migration, food in summer in Kruger area, food in winter in the coastal region. And that was a natural migration for them as well. And those are the migrations that we find in our area. We've got more. These are just a few of them. There's the zebras. There's quite a few things that migrate. But it's a natural cycle of just finding the food as the season changes. An animal cannot stay in one place and feed on the same grass all year round. They will destroy that habitation. And they know that. So they have to move. And that's why they do the migration. We can chat about elephants maybe in one of the videos coming in. Elephants are very interesting when it comes to their habits and their feeding arrangements. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you understand a little bit more about migrations and what it actually means. It's just literally animals moving for food. If you have any comments or any questions, you're welcome to SMS me or WhatsApp me or email me. And we can quickly chat about your questions. So I am stuck at home. I'm free to answer a few questions if you feel like it. But if you want to do the migration up in Serengeti, next year I'm busy moving my dates for this year's Serengeti tour. I'm moving that to next year in May, and I'm also going to do that gorilla tour next year. So there's a few shifts that I have to make in my tours to accommodate this virus. But I'll let you know as soon as my website is up and ready with the new information. I'm just trying to work out how we're going to do it. It's a bit of a structure and logistics thing. There's only one of me. I wish I had two of me, then I could do a few more trips. But there's not. In any case, life's good on the side. We're coping. Everything is lekker. Stay safe, stay clean, and stay at home if you can. I'll chat to you soon. Cheers.